My mother-in-law secretly replaced my birth control pills to force me to have another baby, but her plan backfired when I discovered the truth and exposed her to the whole family. I never thought I'd be posting here, but after everything that's happened, I need to get this off my chest. This is a long one, so grab some popcorn. Background: I'm a 29-year-old nurse, married to my husband, 32, who's a professor at our local university. We've been married for 4 years and have one beautiful 2-year-old daughter. My husband is wonderful, supportive, kind, and completely on the same page as me about family planning. The problem has always been his mother. My mother-in-law, MIL, is intense. She's one of those women who believes a woman's only purpose is to pop out babies and serve her family. She had 5 children herself and constantly talks about how blessed she was to have such a large family. From day one of our marriage, she's been dropping not-so-subtle hints about when we'd give her more grandchildren. When our daughter was born, Mil was over the moon. But literally 3 months postpartum, she started her campaign for baby number 2. When are you giving her a sibling? Children need brothers and sisters. You're not getting any younger. The usual guilt trip arsenal. My husband and I had decided to wait at least 3 years between children. I was still breastfeeding, recovering from a difficult birth, and frankly, we wanted to enjoy our daughter and establish our careers further. I'm working toward my nurse practitioner degree, and my husband was up for tenure. We were clear about our timeline with both our families. Mil did not take this well. The setup: about 6 months ago, things escalated. Mil started visiting more frequently, always with some excuse, bringing food, wanting to help with the baby, needing to borrow something. She's always been a boundary pusher, but my husband finally started setting firmer limits after I had several conversations with him about how overwhelming her visits were becoming. That's when things got weird. Mil has always been the type to snoop. She'd rearrange our kitchen cabinets to be more efficient, organize our closets to help, and generally stick her nose where it didn't belong. We'd addressed this multiple times, but she'd always play the victim. I was just trying to help. I didn't know it would upset you. I'm just a concerned mother. 3 months ago, I started feeling off. More tired than usual, slightly nauseous in the mornings, emotional. As a nurse, I know the signs, but I'd been on birth control for over a year with no issues. I chalked it up to stress from work and school. But then I missed my period. The discovery: I took 3 pregnancy tests. All positive. I was in complete shock. I'd been religious about taking my birth control, same time every day, never missed a dose. My husband was equally confused when I told him. We'd been so careful. That's when I decided to do some investigating. As a nurse, I know that birth control failure, while possible, is relatively rare when taken correctly. I also know that certain medications can interfere with birth control effectiveness. But I wasn't taking any medications that would cause interference. I started thinking about Mil's increased visits and her habit of organizing our things. A horrible suspicion began to form. I checked my birth control pack. The pills looked different. Slightly different shade, different texture. I compared them to a new pack I had in my medicine cabinet. Definitely different. That's when I knew. The investigation. I didn't want to believe it, but I needed proof. I took photos of the suspicious pills and the normal ones side by side. Then I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I set up a hidden camera in our bedroom. I told my husband about my suspicions. At first, he didn't want to believe it. My mother would never. But I showed him the pill comparison photos, and doubt crept in. He agreed to the camera setup. We didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, Mil came over while we were both at work and our daughter was at daycare. She had a key for emergencies, a privilege that was about to be revoked. The camera caught everything. Mil went straight to our bedroom, opened my nightstand drawer, and pulled out my birth control pack. She then pulled a small container from her purse, filled with what looked identical to my birth control pills, but clearly weren't. She carefully replaced every pill in my current pack with her substitute pills. But here's where it gets even more disturbing: she had clearly been doing this for a while. She knew exactly where everything was, moved with practiced efficiency, and even checked the dates on my packs to ensure she was replacing the right ones. I watched this footage with a mixture of rage and disbelief. This woman had been systematically sabotaging my reproductive choices for months. The confrontation. I wanted to burst into her house immediately and unleash hell, but my husband convinced me we needed to be strategic. We were dealing with someone who had shown she was willing to commit what essentially amounted to reproductive coercion, a form of abuse. First, I took the substitute pills to a pharmacy friend who could analyze them. They turned out to be sugar pills, essentially placebos designed to look like birth control. Mil had somehow gotten identical-looking placebo pills and had been systematically replacing my real birth control for months. Next, we consulted with a lawyer. What Mill had done was not just morally reprehensible, it was potentially illegal. Tampering with someone's medication can be considered assault in many jurisdictions. Armed with video evidence, pill analysis, and legal backing, we planned our confrontation. The family meeting. We decided to handle this at the monthly family dinner, a tradition where my husband's entire extended family gets together at Mill and Phil's house. Everyone would be there: Mill, Phil, my husband's 4 siblings and their spouses, and all the grandchildren. My husband called his mother and said we had exciting news to share with the family. Mill was practically vibrating with excitement, clearly thinking we were going to announce the pregnancy she had orchestrated. The day of the dinner, I was nervous but determined. I'd prepared everything meticulously, printed photos, a timeline, and copies of the pharmacy analysis. When it came time for our announcement, I stood up with my husband beside me. "We do have news to share with everyone," I began. "But it's not what you might expect." I pulled out the first photo, the side-by-side comparison of the real and fake pills. 3 months ago, I discovered I was pregnant despite being on birth control. As a nurse, I found this suspicious, so I investigated. I showed the next photo, the hidden camera footage printed as still images, clearly showing Mill in our bedroom with pill containers. I discovered that someone has been systematically replacing my birth control pills with sugar pills for months, without my knowledge or consent. The room went dead silent. Mill's face went white. This person violated our privacy, invaded our home, and made reproductive choices for us without our consent. This person committed a crime. I looked directly at Mill. And that person is sitting at this table. The fallout. All hell broke loose. Mill immediately started denying everything, but I had video evidence. She then switched to justification mode. "I just want what's best for the family. You need more children. I was helping you realize what you really wanted." Phil was horrified. He kept asking Mill if it was true, and when she couldn't deny the video evidence, he exploded. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Mill had overstepped boundaries, but it was definitely the most extreme. My husband's siblings were divided. 2 of them were appalled and immediately sided with us. One sister said she wasn't surprised because Mill had always been controlling. But 2 siblings initially tried to play peacekeeper, suggesting we work it out as a family and that Mill meant well. That's when I dropped the legal bomb. "This isn't a family disagreement," I said. "This is reproductive coercion, which is a form of abuse. It's also potentially assault, since she tampered with my medication. We've already consulted with a lawyer." The peacekeeper siblings quickly changed their tune. But the best part? My husband's youngest sister, who's a social worker, immediately understood the gravity of the situation. "Mom," she said, "do you realize what you've done? You've violated their bodily autonomy. You've committed a crime. If one of my clients told me their mother-in-law had done this, I'd be filing reports and recommending restraining orders." Mill tried to play the victim. Tears, wailing about how she was just a grandmother who wanted more grandbabies, how we were destroying the family by making a big deal out of nothing. But her own children weren't having it. The aftermath. The family dinner ended with Mill locked in the bathroom crying and Phil demanding we all leave so he could deal with his wife. Over the next week, the family dynamics completely shifted. Phil called to apologize profusely and ask what they could do to make amends. He admitted that Mill had been becoming increasingly obsessive about grandchildren and that he should have stopped her earlier. 2 of my husband's siblings called to offer their complete support and to apologize for their mother's behavior. The social worker sister was particularly supportive and offered to help us navigate the legal aspects if we decided to pursue charges. The 2 siblings who initially tried to minimize the situation eventually came around after thinking about it more. One of them said, "If someone had done this to my wife, I'd have them arrested." But the real vindication came from an unexpected source. The extended revenge. Remember how I mentioned Mill had 5 children? Well, it turns out my situation opened a floodgate of revelations. My husband's oldest brother's wife approached me privately a few days after the dinner. She wanted to know more about the signs I'd noticed, because she'd had a similar experience years ago. Turns out, Mill had done something similar to her, not with birth control, but she'd been slipping fertility herbs into her food and drinks during family gatherings, hoping to boost her chances of conceiving. This sister-in-law had noticed weird symptoms and eventually figured it out, but had never said anything because she thought no one would believe her. Then my husband's middle sister came forward. Mill had been pressuring her for years to have children. She'd chosen to be child-free, and had been secretly throwing away her birth control pills and replacing them with vitamins whenever she visited. The sister had figured it out but had moved away partially to escape Mill's interference. Suddenly, a pattern emerged. Mill had been interfering with her daughters-in-law's reproductive choices for years. My situation was just the most documented and egregious example. When this all came to light at a follow-up family meeting, which Mill was not invited to, the family was horrified. These weren't isolated incidents of overeager grandmother behavior, this was systematic reproductive abuse. The legal resolution. After consulting with our lawyer and discussing with the family, we decided not to pursue criminal charges, but we did get a restraining order. Mill is not allowed within 500 feet of our home, workplace, or daughter's daycare. We also sent a formal cease and desist letter, documenting all her behavior and making it clear that any future interference would result in immediate legal action. The lawyer also helped us understand our rights regarding the pregnancy that resulted from her sabotage. While we couldn't undo what happened, we could ensure it never happened again. The family restructure. The most satisfying part of this whole ordeal has been watching the family dynamics shift. Phil has stepped up in a major way, taking responsibility for his wife's behavior and working to rebuild trust with his children and their spouses. He filed for separation after Mill refused to acknowledge the seriousness of her actions or agree to therapy. She kept insisting she was the victim and that we were all overreacting. The siblings have rallied around us and formed a support network that explicitly excludes Mill until she gets help and makes genuine amends. They've also established new boundaries for family gatherings and made it clear that this kind of behavior will never be tolerated again. Mill has been essentially ostracized from her own family, not because we orchestrated it, but because her own actions finally caught up with her. The baby situation. As for the pregnancy that started this whole mess, we decided to continue with it. While the circumstances of conception were traumatic and violating, we realized we did want another child, just not on Mill's timeline. We're expecting our second daughter in about 3 months. This pregnancy has been completely different from my first, no interference, no pressure, no unwanted opinions. Just my husband and me making our own choices about our family. The bitter irony? Mill will likely never have a relationship with this grandchild. Her obsession with having more grandbabies resulted in her losing access to the one she already had. Current status. It's been 3 months since the confrontation, and the restraining order is still in place. Mill has made no genuine attempts at apology or getting help. According to Phil, she still believes she did nothing wrong and that we're all being overdramatic. She's tried reaching out through flying monkeys, friends and distant relatives who don't know the full story. But we've been transparent with anyone who asks, and most people are horrified when they learn what she actually did. My husband has been incredible through all of this. He's been in therapy to process the betrayal by his mother and has been completely supportive of every decision we've made. Our marriage is stronger than ever. As for me, I've become an advocate for reproductive rights and have shared my story, anonymously, with other healthcare workers to help them recognize signs of reproductive coercion. It's more common than people think. The lesson. The biggest lesson from all this? Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let people gaslight you into thinking you're overreacting, especially when it comes to your bodily autonomy. Also, document everything. The video evidence was crucial in getting people to believe us and take the situation seriously. And perhaps most importantly, you don't owe toxic people access to your life, even if they're family. Blood relation doesn't give someone the right to violate your boundaries, your body, or your choices. Mill thought she was clever, orchestrating our reproductive choices from the shadows. But her manipulation backfired spectacularly. She didn't just lose control over our family planning, she lost her family entirely. Sometimes the best revenge is simply allowing someone to face the natural consequences of their actions. Update. For those asking about the legal aspects, yes, what she did was illegal in our jurisdiction. Tampering with medication is considered assault, and reproductive coercion is recognized as a form of domestic abuse. We chose not to pursue criminal charges because the restraining order and family consequences felt like sufficient justice for our situation. The pharmacy analysis was crucial in proving our case. The fake pills were clearly not what they claimed to be, and the pharmacist was willing to provide official documentation of this for legal purposes. And for those wondering about the hidden camera, we checked our local laws first. Since it was our own bedroom in our own home, it was completely legal. Final thoughts. I never imagined I'd be in a situation like this, but I'm glad I fought back. Mill's plan to manipulate us into having another baby on her timeline completely backfired. Instead of getting more grandbabies to spoil, she lost access to all of them. Instead of maintaining control over our family, she lost her place in it entirely. Instead of being seen as a loving grandmother, she's now known as someone who commits reproductive abuse. The justice in this situation isn't just that she faced consequences, it's that her own actions created exactly the opposite of what she wanted. She destroyed the very relationships she was trying to control. And honestly, our family is better without her toxic influence. Our daughter will grow up in a home where her bodily autonomy is respected, where consent matters, and where family means support, not manipulation. That's the real victory here. Thanks for reading, Reddit. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone's true colors show to everyone who matters.